Start the recording. Hey, Mike Kopletz here with you with the Royal Rooks. We are a little chess club in York, PA. It was established originally as a scholastic club, and we've grown from there to include anyone who loves to play chess. And I've been creating some of these instructional videos, and I hope that you do find them useful. If you come to royalrooks.club, C-L-U-B, you can find all the instructional videos that I've been working on. Now, this series is called Best Lessons of a Chess Coach. Here's the book. And what I like to do is to look at the different lessons in here and bring out a few things that I've noticed along the way. And I hope you will find it useful. If you have the book, which I highly recommend, and I always recommend this to students, is to get the book also so we can be looking at the same thing. I'm on lesson number 6. So this is lesson number 6. So we're going to look at a couple ways of playing a game in lesson 6. You can take control of the chess game, the board yourself, which I really like to do, or you sit back and wait for your opponent to come to you. This is a game from 1859 from the first official world champion, Wilhelm Steinitz. There, I love looking at these old games. And he was considered a great master of positional play. So let's take a look. So we're going to start with E4. And of course, if you have a DGT board, they are fantastic, especially if you set them up properly. And I forgot to do that real quick. So let's do that. Get the position from the DGT board. And we're on move 1. And now what we can do is, no, that's not going to work. All right, let's try it. E4. I love the Houdini software. This is, Houdini is the engine. Houdini Aquarium is the interface. It's from ChessOK or Convectech.com. Love using it for the analysis part. As you can see, the analysis is off to the right side. I'm using a pretty decent CPU system to do this. I'm just going to put a couple of the moves up on the board. These are pretty standard. Looks like an Italian game. And here the board is frozen. So let's try that again. There we go. If you don't have a DGT board connected to a PC, I think they also can go to Macs. That wouldn't surprise me. It's worth it. You can see the value of it when you're connecting to software like this. I think it's good to be able to touch the pieces because I found for myself and students I've had that they remember more when they touch. C3. So again, these are pretty standard moves. Of course, white is going to be pushing D4, get that nice, pretty center. Continue play. F6, of course, is a nice move. It attacks D4. I'm sorry, D4. It's attacking E4. Get my D's and E's right. White continues with D4, attacking the bishop and, of course, the pawn. So something has to be done there quickly. E takes D4. Again, pretty standard stuff. I don't think we're looking at anything overly tremendous yet. Take back. And then bishop to B4. And that's a check. So now we have to look for some things. So what's going to happen here? Steinitz moves knight to C3. And of course that blocks the check. And the interesting question would be, can you simply take E4? Notice the computer saying you could take e4. No problem, knight takes e4. And it is a sacrifice of a pawn. Excuse me. Instead, he decides to do d5. I probably didn't mention who he was playing against. Steinitz is playing von Bard-Liedeben. Okay, we'll just say his opponent. It's easier. So he does e takes d5. Knight takes d5. And at this point, interesting enough, castle. Now, the question is, can black simply take either with the knight or the bishop and get a nice free pawn there? Computer likes to take with the bishop. I don't like giving up bishops for knights that easily. But it's saying here in the text that that pawn grab is a little dangerous. And the reason it's dangerous, look where the king is. It's really, that king is exposed. And if he does do the knight takes, and we can show that right now, knight takes c3, okay, that's fine, and pawn takes, and the bishop takes. It could get a little interesting. Let's see what happens if the knight takes. So let's do knight takes knight. And that starts to look interesting. Look at the line here. I'll just stop and bring it up this way. So b takes, check. We get into some interesting things. What happens if he does take, if king takes the bishop, then of course the queen can come out check. So that's one thing he could do. Let's go back to this position. And black decided to play bishop e6. Now he doesn't have to worry about the crazy checks. Steinitz plays bishop out here to, that's g5. And notice he's not real worried about the pawn. It's really not. I wonder what would happen if we did take with the knight. Well, we could see it. Here's one of the lines. Knight takes, b takes, and then he has to retreat. Oh, that's very ugly, isn't it? There's the fork of the bishop and the knight, and black goes down a piece. Not a good idea. Bishop e7. Well, let me put that back for a second. Let me back that up just for a quick second. Do it on the DGT board so you can see it. Bishop to e7. You can see why all these little exchanges, you have to be so careful of the possibilities. So Steinitz decides to do bishop takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Knight takes d5. Wow, we're getting rid of a whole bunch of pieces here fast, aren't we? Queen takes d5. Notice that white has an isolated queen pawn, an isolini. Not a good thing in my opinion, but okay so far. Bishop takes. Knight takes. Now there's the position at this point. And now we got an interesting situation. Black is not castled yet. So you got to take advantage of that. Do you see how you can do that? Well, there are actually two ways. You could move the rook to e1, as the computer says, or you could actually move the queen to e2 or e1. E1 would not be a good move. This would be bad. Why are you saying it's bad? Because now the rook is trapped on f1. It's going to take a couple moves to get him active, so you don't want to do that. If you bring him up to e2, which is okay, except when a queen is in front of a rook, what happens if black got a rook on e8? He could gain control of the file, so that's not really good either. So rook to e1 is the move that's played. That is the best move. If we can get the DGT board to accept that. And it is not accepting it. Let's bring this back and bring this over. All right. Every once in a while, the board, it's the software actually gets a little bit confused. So it's very easy to go in here and then just do get from DGT and make it black's move. And we're set. There we go. And it wiped out my game. Well, that's not good. Let's just bring it back again. And I'm not sure. We'll do it one more time. Get it from the DGT. Gonna make this black. Gonna click. And for some reason, we don't have the board coming up. It always works. Click on get it from the DGT. Turn it and click OK. Okay, it's back. I have no idea why that blurb occurred, and my apologies for those who are watching live or watching this video. Notice now the king cannot castle. That is the key. All those exchanges were done for that one reason, so that black's king is now caught on the e8 square. So what does he do? He decides to play f6. He's got to get out of the pin, or else white's just going to keep pounding on the pin. So he decides Steinitz to go queen e2. Well, sure, it makes sense at this point. He's attacking the knight. Again, may not be the best place for the queen eventually, but right now it's not so bad. And of course, black has to defend that knight. He's going to lose it if he doesn't. He has to bring the queen back to d7. And now you have to look at it and think, so what should white do next? Fair question. So Steinitz decides he's going to develop his rook. Now, you know, rooks should be on open or semi-open ranks. Open files. And of course, C1 is pretty open, and that's where he's going to bring the rook. And black decides to do C6. You know, that looks really logical when you think about it. Let's put it back for a second. See what the computer says. See, computer says get out of the pin. And that's probably the best thing to do, is to get out of the pin. Black decides to go with C6. Now, why would he do that? Well, he's worried about that rook. He's worried about this little old rook coming all the way down to C7. That would be very ugly. So he decides to plug the hole. Now, the question is, can white take advantage of C6? In the book, they have a question mark on it. Of course, that is it is a blunder when you look at it. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing it. Computer's not seeing it, which is interesting. You'd think it would have. And that move is d5. You're wondering, why doesn't the computer see that? Well, let's go a little further, because this is a sacrifice. See? He's sacrificing the pawn. Computers don't like sacrifices. I like to play gambits. You want to see Houdini go crazy. Watch you do a gambit on it. He doesn't like it. And what's happened with this pawn sacrifice is that C file now is wide open. So now the knight can come to d4. What a beautiful place to be. He's looking at moving that knight to a couple of different places. He's blocking the pawn, so he's not really worried about it advancing at the moment. And then king to d7 was played by black, which makes sense. You got to get out of the pin somehow. Now, what's a great move here? Well, it turns out knight to c6, knight to c6, knight to e6. I can talk. And now, look at that open rank. I'm getting my files and ranks backward. Look at that open file and where that rook's going. That rook, if the rook can get to c7, that's just going to pulverize. And of course, it'll win that knight that's sitting on d7. Now, what's black's response? Well, it's interesting because the computer's showing c6, knight c6, showing a few others. He ends up doing this. Okay, that's interesting because what it's doing is it's preventing rook coming down to c7. That's true. It's doing a little bit of threatening. Okay, I could see that. Computer didn't see it. Computer didn't like it. In fact, if you take a look over here on the points where I'm kind of swirling around with the cursor, 3.45, 3.6. Positionally, white is up a piece, which makes it interesting. So he moves his queen to g4. He's now threatening, of course, this g7 pawn. That's a problem. And of course, black has to defend it. The only way possible here is to move the pawn to g6. That'll stop it. So let's keep going. Knight to g5, check. Let's bring it back for a second. What does the computer say? I didn't look. Yep, knight to g5, check. Look at the queen. Black's queen is now up for grabs. Of course, the king's going to have to go back to e8. There's nowhere else for him to go. He has to. And of course he does. And the computer is saying rook takes e7. Rook takes e7. Okay, check. Interesting move. Very nice move. And here we have some interesting situations here. If the queen takes this rook, I'll show you what it looks like. There it goes. Oh, took a second to come up. If the queen takes, you have rook takes rook, right? This rook takes, queen takes, check, and white's going to end up a piece up. That knight's going to become a piece up. So that would not be a good move. Just wanted you to see it. Make sure you saw it. Well, king goes to f8. Now you're thinking, wait a minute. He just gave up his queen, right? Ah, take a look back here. The back rank of white is open at the moment. And if white swoops in and takes this rook comes down, or if he takes the queen with the queen, that's checkmate. That's not a good idea. Okay, so the continuation goes rook f7 check. Now, here it'd be interesting. Again, the same situation. I could see it right off the bat. Again, if the queen takes the rook, we again have rook check, rook take rook, queen take. He's still going to end up with a knight. He's still going to end up. So he's going to move to g8. He has no choice here to go to g8. And now he's going to check on g7. Same thing, same principle. Cannot take it. You just can't take it. So he goes The computer says he should, but black decides to go to h8. Same problem. Now just take the pawn. Nothing's changed for white. Same situation. Not going to change a thing here. So let's see what happens. He takes h7 check. That is on move 25. Now what's interesting here is that there's a whole bunch of moves missing. That's kind of funny. There's a bunch of moves missing from the book. I got it. I see why. Black got up and walked away. Just got up and walked out of the room. So there's a whole bunch of things that could happen here. And we have to decide on these things. So let's go by what the computer's telling us for a second. Queen take h7. Rook take c8. Rook take c8. Queen take c8 check. Queen down. All right, let's do queen to h3 check. King to g7. Queen to d7 check. You're starting to get the drift here. As we continue on a little bit. And of course now white's going to start knocking off these pawns. And black's king's kind of stuck. I mean, even if he moves the queen forward, see what the computer said? Yeah. That doesn't help. So the computer's saying a5, get your pawn out of the way. And now we start going after these other pawns. And you could see that white's going to win here. He's a piece up, and he's not going to have a whole lot of trouble stopping those pawns. All right. Well, I hope you found this to be interesting. And I did create the video, so those of you who missed the live, come to Royal Rooks, all one word, .club, club, and you'll be able to see this analysis under the heading of Best Lessons of a Chess Coach, the extended edition book. It's a graphic on the site. You know, can't miss it. All right. Well, to my chess friends, take care. And God bless. Be safe and healthy. And I pray that soon we'll be able to play chess over the board again. All right. Bye-bye.